Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight we're traveling back to a time when castles ruled the skyline and peasants dreamed beneath thatched roofs. A world divided not just by gold or blood, but by how people lived, loved, and even slept. From royal servants who cleaned the king's throne to humble farmers who shared their beds with cows to stay warm. From the glittering banquets of nobles to the smoky kitchens of the poor, every breath of the Middle Ages reveals a strange, beautiful truth about what it meant to survive. So before you get comfortable, take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe. But only if these deep sleep history stories help you find peace, sleep better, or simply reflect on our shared journey through time. Now, close your eyes, let the past unfold in whispers, and drift into the quiet heartbeat of history. What if sleeping 8 hours straight was never natural? For most of human history, the night was not a single, silent stretch of darkness. It was a rhythm, a slow dance between waking and dreaming. Long before alarm clocks, electricity, and blue light from glowing screens, people lived by the pulse of nature. And that rhythm told them sleep was not one long act, but two. Historians call it segmented sleep or biphasic sleep. It began around 9 p.m. when households dimmed their candles and drifted into the first sleep, the dead sleep, as old diaries called it. For the next 3 or 4 hours, the world was truly still. The only sounds were the crackle of a dying fire, the sigh of a winter wind, the soft breath of cattle resting in their stalls. During this first phase, the human body sank deep into the kind of sleep modern science calls slow-wave sleep, where the mind repairs and the soul dissolves. But then, around midnight or just after, something curious happened. People would wake up, not suddenly, not frightened, but gently, as if called by something soft and ancient. This first waking was as natural as the first sleep. They would stretch, stoke the fire, perhaps whisper a prayer, or reach for a partner under the blankets. Some rose to write in candlelight, letters, poems, or thoughts they couldn't hold until morning. In the dark quiet, creativity seemed to bloom. Even peasants, after long days in the fields, would wake to tend the hearth, check on livestock, or simply sit and listen to the night hum. Neighbors sometimes visited one another during this midnight interlude, exchanging bread, gossip, or a quick drink before returning to their beds. To them, the night was alive, divided, yes, but whole. The stars above were not symbols of sleeplessness, but of company. It was the hour when dreams and reality met halfway. So when people returned to bed for their second sleep, they did so peacefully, carrying the quiet of the night inside them. When the first sleep faded, a quiet middle hour began. The hour between dreams. It was neither night nor morning. a space where time itself seemed to pause and breathe. In this gentle in-between, people moved like shadows within candlelight. Some rose to pray, others whispered to lovers. A few wrote, cooked, or simply stared into the darkness, feeling it speak back. In 16th century England, parish records mention first sleep and second sleep as ordinary parts of life. Even physicians recommended this break, believing that the short waking eased the body and mind. For farmers, it was a time to check the animals or adjust the hearth. For mothers, it was a quiet moment to nurse their babies without rush. For lovers, it was a hidden hour, soft, secret, and tender. Writers of the era often described this wakeful time as a visit of the soul. They believed dreams lingered at the edges of waking, carrying messages from the divine. So people would recall their dreams, interpret them, or even write them down before slipping into the second sleep. In France, this middle hour was called dorveil, literally sleep-wake. Letters from Paris in the 1500s speak of people visiting friends, drinking warm wine, or making love after the first sleep. Even the church scheduled certain prayers, like the matins, around this time because so many were already awake. Imagine walking outside then, the moon hanging low, the earth quiet but alive. Smoke curled from chimneys, dogs shifted in straw. A door creaked softly somewhere down the lane. No one feared the night. It was familiar, almost comforting. The stars above were guides, and the dark was not an enemy, but a companion. And when the hour passed, they returned to bed, slipping easily back into dreams. This second sleep lasted until dawn, light filtering through the shutters, roosters calling, the smell of bread returning to the air. It was the most restful part of the night, the one that left people calm and clear when they rose. And for centuries, this was how the world slept, in two halves, not one. They never questioned it. They simply followed the rhythm their bodies knew by heart. A rhythm older than clocks, older than cities, older than light itself.
For thousands of years, people drifted through the night in two gentle waves of sleep, until the world changed. The rhythm that once shaped our bodies began to fade, not because we forgot, but because we built a new kind of night. It began with firelight, then candles, then gas lamps. But it was the Industrial Revolution that finally killed the darkness. Factories demanded workers to rise early and stay awake late. The world of work no longer followed the sun, it followed the clock. Cities glowed with new light, and darkness was no longer sacred. By the mid-19th century, the streets of London and Paris burned with gas lamps, turning night into day. The human body, once guided by nature, was now forced to obey time. The two-part night, first sleep and second sleep, began to collapse into one long stretch. Doctors started promoting 8 hours of uninterrupted rest as the modern ideal. The gentle wake between sleeps was rebranded as insomnia. People who found themselves awake at 2 or 3 a.m. were suddenly told something was wrong with them. But the truth is simpler. It isn't wrong, it's ancient. When you wake at 3 a.m., your body isn't failing, it's remembering. It's whispering the rhythm that humanity lived by for millennia. The space between midnight and dawn once belonged to prayer, reflection, and tenderness. You weren't meant to scroll your phone under a blue glow. You were meant to think, to dream, to simply be. Even modern sleep researchers, like historian Roger Eckertsch, rediscovered hundreds of references to this pattern. First sleep, second sleep, the waking, written in diaries, court records, and literature from across Europe. In their pages, the human night reveals its true form, not as broken, but as breathing, a living cycle of rest and thought, dream and silence. And yet, we lost it, trading the pulse of nature for the hum of electricity. Streetlights, shift work, and glowing screens stretched the night until it forgot to rest. Now, we chase the fantasy of perfect sleep, 8 hours, motionless, uninterrupted, and curse ourselves when our eyes open before dawn. But maybe that moment isn't a failure at all. Maybe it's the soft echo of our ancestors. If you've ever woken at 3 a.m. and felt calm yet alert, your body might be calling you back to an older wisdom, a rhythm older than civilization. In that hour, your mind drifts into a state between REM and waking, where intuition sharpens and time slows. Ancient monks called it the holy hour. They believed it was when the veil between the worlds was thinnest, when prayers rose fastest and thoughts ran deepest. Even now, psychologists find that creativity peaks when we wake briefly during the night. That half-dreaming state lets imagination and reason meet halfway, just as it did centuries ago by candlelight. So, when you next wake in the stillness before dawn, don't fight it. Sit with it. Breathe with it. It's not sleeplessness, it's remembrance. You are sharing a moment with your ancestors, with monks, poets, farmers, and lovers who once stirred beneath the same moon. Their world may have vanished, but the rhythm lingers in your bones. And as you drift back to sleep, remember, your body is older than the modern world.
Medieval people bathed more than you think. The image of dirty peasants coated in filth has always been a popular myth, but history whispers a cleaner truth. In the flicker of torchlight, long before plumbing or soap as we know it, public bathhouses stood in almost every European town. They were called stews in England, balnia in France, and badehouse in Germany. Warm sanctuaries where strangers shed the dust of the day together. In cities like Paris, London, and Prague, the scent of boiling water and herbs floated through the air. Some bathhouses were humble wooden huts beside rivers, others grand halls lined with marble tubs and painted ceilings. They were not only for washing the body, but for washing the soul. People believed water cleansed sin as much as sweat. The first bath of the evening was usually for the workers, blacksmiths, bakers, and millers covered in soot and flour. They would sit shoulder to shoulder, laughing, soaking, letting the heat loosen the ache of the day. Then came the merchants, the nobles, and sometimes even the priests. The medieval night was not as modest as we imagine. Candles flickered, steam curled, conversations drifted from gossip to philosophy. In the haze, class differences softened. For a moment, everyone was equal under the same cloud of steam. Bathhouses were deeply social places. Families came together. Friends arranged meetings there. Travelers stopped to wash off the road before entering the city. In some towns, doctors even prescribed bathing as a cure for melancholy, fever, or heartbreak. But water was not always pure. Rivers were the lifeblood of cities, yet also their veins of waste. To bathe was to risk illness as much as to find relief. Still, people trusted warmth more than fear. They steeped herbs like rosemary, sage, and chamomile into the tubs, believing each leaf carried healing spirits. Imagine the sound. Laughter echoing off stone walls, ladles pouring hot water, whispers melting into the fog. To the medieval mind, this was not luxury, it was necessary. Cleanliness was close to godliness, even if their methods differed from ours. Men and women often shared baths, though with rules or curtains between them. Children splashed beside their parents. Songs were sung, wine was shared, and in some corners, yes, more intimate acts took place. But those stories, though scandalous to later generations, were simply part of life. Bathhouses were as ordinary as bakeries or churches. And yet, slowly, that culture began to fade. As plagues spread across Europe, people feared that hot water opened the pores and let disease seep in. Cities closed bathhouses one by one, believing they bred sin and sickness. By the 16th century, the once steaming halls fell silent. Dust gathered on their marble rims. The laughter vanished, replaced by sermons about modesty and danger. And from that silence, centuries later, the myth of the filthy Middle Ages was born.
So, if the bathhouses were temples of water, then herbs and strange remedies were their sacred offerings. To us, medieval hygiene often sounds bizarre, yet for them it was practical,
familiar, and even spiritual. A pot of boiling water, a sprig of rosemary, a handful of mint. This was medicine, perfume, and prayer, all in one. The medieval mind did not separate the body from the soul, nor scent from health. To cleanse was to restore balance, not just remove dirt. Women collected lavender and sage from the fields, drying them in sunlight and steeping them later into washing water. Men rinsed their hair with vinegar or beer to keep it soft and shining. In some places, the wealthy brushed their teeth with crushed herbs, ashes, or even powdered coral mixed with honey. But the strangest ingredient of all was one that shocked later centuries: urine. Collected and fermented, it was used not as waste, but as a powerful cleanser. In cities like Florence and York, it whitened linens, polished metal, and yes, was believed to whiten teeth. Its ammonia content made it effective, though unpleasant, and those who used it swore it worked. Dyers and laundresses were paid in barrels of it. Children were even sent to fetch the morning jar. For them, it was not disgusting. It was science, before science had a name. Hair care was a ritual too. Without shampoos or mirrors as we know them, people relied on touch, scent, and the quiet company of combs. A mother might sit by the fire, slowly running a fine-toothed comb through her daughter's braids, catching lice and dust one by one. Lice were not a sign of filth, they were simply part of life. Combs were precious, often carved from bone or ivory, carried in small pouches as personal treasures. To keep hair fresh, women rinsed it with infusions of chamomile or nettle, while men rubbed rosemary oil into their beards. In monasteries, monks shaved their crowns not for vanity, but for humility and hygiene, a clean circle of skin that kept lice from thriving beneath the hood. And then there was scent. The medieval world was full of smells, good and bad. People masked them not with synthetic perfumes, but with herbs tucked into clothes, beds, and even hair. Lavender sachets, rose petals, and bay leaves were stitched into linen or tied with ribbon at the wrist. To sleep in a bed that smelled of mint or thyme was not luxury, it was comfort, a small shield against the heavy air of city streets. The mouth, too, had its rituals. Long before dentists, people believed a clean mouth meant a pure spirit. Morning prayers were often followed by a rinse of wine, vinegar, or salt water. Some used mixtures of sage and pepper to scrub the gums. A few rubbed ashes from burnt rosemary twigs on their teeth, believing the plant's holy fire chased away decay. Others chewed cloves to sweeten the breath. In monasteries, young novices were taught to rinse after every meal, a practice that quietly survived into modern etiquette. Yet not everyone could afford such habits. The poor often used what nature offered: twigs, cloth, or even sand to clean themselves. Their hygiene was humble but constant. Dirt was not neglect, it was work. And in villages far from the cities, rivers and rain remained the truest baths of all. When we think of the Middle Ages, we often imagine darkness, disease, and ignorance. But look closer, and you find something gentler. People trying, in their own ways, to stay clean in a world that was often uncleanable. They listened to nature, trusted herbs, and made beauty from what they had. Their methods might make us smile, but they were guided by the same desire we carry now, to feel renewed, to wash away the dust of the day, the worry of the heart, and the shadow of time. As the centuries turned, the rhythm of hygiene changed, just as sleep once had. Bathhouses closed, herbs faded from memory, and cleanliness slowly moved from community to privacy. Yet the human desire to stay clean never vanished. It simply adapted. In the quiet rooms of medieval homes, people began to invent their own rituals. Women, for example, faced one of the most challenging aspects of hygiene: menstruation. Without modern pads or plumbing, they relied on cloth rags, folded carefully and reused after washing. These pieces of linen were called clouts or charms, and though they may sound primitive to us, they were cherished, often soft, clean, and made by hand. Some women lined them with moss or wool for comfort. In noble households, servants discreetly washed and dried them near fireplaces, while in villages, women shared advice about herbs to ease cramps or stop staining. It was a private rhythm, a silent understanding among generations, one rarely spoken of, yet deeply human. And then there were the toilets, or rather the absence of them. Medieval towns were alive with sounds and smells, and the streets often reflected what people ate. The wealthy might have a chamber pot, sometimes made of pewter or fine ceramics, hidden under beds or behind curtains. The poor used wooden buckets or simply the open earth. At night, when the wind was cold and streets were dark, chamber pots became loyal companions. By dawn, they were emptied into the gutters or cesspits, deep holes where waste collected until it was carted away. Public latrines existed too, built over running water when possible. Monasteries were surprisingly advanced. Monks designed clever drainage systems that led from their communal toilets straight into rivers. For the rest of society, however, waste was simply part of the landscape, an ordinary scent of medieval life. But amid this roughness, something extraordinary was happening. People were inventing habits that would evolve into modern hygiene. City councils began to regulate waste disposal. Soap, once rare, became common, made from animal fat and lye. Perfumed oils grew into an early form of cosmetics. Even modest homes started keeping basins of water for morning washing, called ablutions. Cleanliness was no longer about sin or ritual. It was becoming about dignity. By the Renaissance, attitude shifted again. The educated began to associate cleanliness with refinement, discipline, and intellect. A clean body reflects a clean soul, wrote Erasmus in 1530. Yet even then, daily baths were rare. Instead, people wiped themselves with cloths dipped in scented water or vinegar. They believed moderation kept the body balanced. Not too much dirt, not too much purity. The obsession with total sterility would come centuries later with plumbing and germ theory. The true revolution began not with soap, but with pipes. In the 18th and 19th centuries, cities laid the veins of the modern world: sewers, pumps, faucets. The chamber pot moved indoors, became the porcelain toilet. The river bath became the private tub. And with it, the act of cleansing became solitary. What was once shared, a laugh, a conversation, a ritual, turned into silence behind closed doors. We gained hygiene, but perhaps lost a kind of human closeness. Today, when we turn on a tap or flush away waste without thought, we touch the legacy of centuries of trial, error, and belief. From rags and herbs to porcelain and plumbing, the story of cleanliness is really the story of how humans learn to care for themselves, for each other, for the fragile balance between nature and civilization. And maybe, when you light a candle by the bath or breathe in the scent of soap, you are not so different from those who came before. They too sought comfort in warmth, fragrance, and water. They too wanted to feel new again.
They ate things we'd never touch today. Yet to them, every meal was a bridge between hunger and gratitude, a ritual as sacred as prayer. The medieval table was not just a place to eat, but a stage for survival, faith, and display. Imagine a feast inside a flickering great hall, firelight dancing on wooden beams, dogs sleeping near the hearth, minstrels humming soft tunes while servants hurry with trays of roasted meat. But there were no plates of porcelain or forks of silver, only trenchers, thick slabs of stale bread carved into circles or squares. They were edible plates designed to soak the juices of meat and sauce. The rich ate from fine trenchers made of wheat bread, while the poor used barley or rye. After the meal, these bread plates were either eaten, given to beggars, or tossed to the dogs. The table itself became a symbol of charity. Nothing was truly wasted. The medieval world understood hunger deeply. Winter was not just a season, it was a test. When harvests failed, the line between banquet and famine blurred. So food was honored, never taken lightly. A lord might bless the bread before slicing it, tracing a small cross in the crust. A monk might pause before eating, whispering thanks for the day's mercy. Even kings, surrounded by abundance, knew the fear of empty granaries. That is why meals were communal, shared with servants and strangers alike. A full table was not just wealth, it was safety. And then there were the ingredients. Strange, extravagant, and to our modern minds, almost unbelievable. Roasted swan glazed with honey. Peacocks served whole, their feathers reattached after cooking. Dolphin meat, boar tongues, even porpoises swimming straight from river to platter. Spices from the east, cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves, cost more than gold. They were symbols of power, proof that a household could command the farthest corners of the world. A noble's kitchen smelled of pepper and almond milk, sugar and saffron, not because they loved flavor, but because they loved prestige. Yet food was never just pleasure, it was faith. The medieval year revolved around the church calendar, dictating when people could eat meat and when they must abstain. Over 150 days each year were marked as fish days, meaning no red meat could be eaten. On Fridays, Lent, and holy seasons, people turned to fish, grains, vegetables, and ale. Even during fasts, the wealthy found loopholes.
dishes made from almond milk, fake eggs crafted from picro, and pies filled with eel. But for most, fasting meant gratitude, a reminder of humility, discipline, and survival. In homes both grand and humble, beer flowed as freely as water. In fact, it was the water. Rivers were often polluted and wells uncertain. So everyone, men, women, and even children, drank ale. It was weak, nutritious, and safer than anything drawn from the ground. The first sip of morning ale was as common as our morning coffee. There were rules, too, gentle courtesies, shaped by both manners and necessity. Hands were washed before and after eating, often in bowls of rose water. One did not bite into shared bread, but tore it politely. One used only 3 fingers to pick up food, a sign of restraint. Guests carved meat with their own knives, passing morsels with respect. To lick fingers or chew noisily was not rude, it was human. Food was not sterile, it was alive, touched, shared, and blessed. As the candles burned low, trenchers grew soft, soaked with flavor. The last bites carried the memory of the feast, fat, spice, laughter. And as servants gathered scraps to give to the poor, something ancient lingered in the air, the sense that every crumb mattered. Because in that world, waste was sin, and gratitude was survival.
The medieval day began not with coffee, but with beer. In the soft gray of morning, when the mist still clung to thatched roofs, families gathered around wooden tables for bread, cheese, and a cup of ale. It wasn't a luxury, it was survival. The rivers they drank from were filled with waste, and wells were often tainted. Brewing, however, boiled the water, made it safe. So beer, weak, nourishing, and mildly sweet, became the drink of life. Even children sipped from small mugs called small ale, with less alcohol than fruit juice. It gave energy, calmed hunger, and for a brief moment, tasted like comfort. In monasteries, the same ritual took place, but with silent reverence. Monks drank ale not for pleasure, but for discipline. Each sip reminded them of humility, that even the simplest drink could be a form of gratitude. The sound of mugs touching wood was as rhythmic as prayer. Yet for all the warmth of the morning, food itself was bound by faith. The medieval year was carved by the calendar of the church, where eating was not just nourishment, but obedience. Over half the days in a year, more than 150, were fasting days. On these days, meat was forbidden. No beef, no pork, no chicken. Only fish, grains, and vegetables were allowed. The rule wasn't meant to punish, but to remind. To eat less was to think more, to make room for the divine. Imagine a winter Friday in a small village. The hearth burns low, the smell of salted herring fills the air. A mother stirs a pot of peas and barley, her children waiting quietly. Outside, the fields sleep under frost, and the church bell tolls the hour.
They eat slowly, speaking little. Fasting didn't mean starvation, it meant rhythm. Days of meat, days of fish, days of silence. It was how people found meaning in hunger, by turning necessity into devotion. For nobles and the wealthy, fasting was a game of cleverness. Almond milk replaced cream. Ground almonds mixed with rose water made sauces that looked rich but followed the rules. Some cooks made mock meat from fish paste shaped into birds and beasts. There were even eggs made from pike roe, wrapped in fish skin and dyed with saffron. Their tables may have followed the letter of the law, but their bellies knew indulgence. For the poor, though, fasting was no pretense, it was life. A handful of grains, a loaf of dark bread, and ale were enough. They didn't choose simplicity, they survived by it. Still, when feast days arrived, and there were many, the world turned bright again. Bells rang, ovens burned, and the smell of roasting filled the streets. Meat returned to the tables like a long-lost friend. Children laughed, minstrels sang, and even the poorest houses baked something sweet. On feast days, no one was a stranger. Tables stretched from hall to hall, from church to tavern. Food was shared, stories were told, and time seemed to stop. In that moment, hunger was forgotten, and the world felt whole. But the beauty of medieval eating wasn't only in the food. It was in the manners that framed it. Forks were still rare. Hands were the tools of grace. The church taught that one should eat with the first 3 fingers, as the Holy Trinity: thumb, index, and middle. To eat with the whole hand was considered gluttony. To lick too often was vanity. People washed their hands before and after each meal, not from fear of germs, but from reverence. Water was poured by a servant over the fingers into a silver or wooden bowl, often perfumed with rose or lavender. Guests shared dishes, tore bread instead of cutting it, and offered the best morsels to those beside them. Eating was an act of connection, a slow, shared language of trust. By candlelight, those gestures felt sacred. The warmth of bread in hand, the softness of ale, the echo of laughter under timbered roofs, all of it created a kind of peace. In a world where life was short and uncertain, every meal, no matter how small, became a celebration, a moment to breathe, to belong, to remember that survival itself was holy.
In the Middle Ages, nothing was thrown away. Every crust of bread, every bone, every drop of ale carried value. Waste was not a luxury they could afford. It was unthinkable. When food took months of labor, prayer, and weather's mercy to reach the table, each bite was an act of reverence. Even the humblest families practiced a quiet art of gratitude that modern life has forgotten. After meals, bones were boiled for broth, stale bread became pudding or thickened soup,
and vegetable peels fed the animals that would one day feed them in return. The cycle was perfect, a dance between hunger and renewal, where nothing truly died, it simply transformed. At the manor table, after the feast was done, servants gathered what remained, not to discard, but to give. Leftover trenchers soaked in meat and sauce were distributed to the poor waiting at the gates. For the hungry outside, those softened loaves were blessings. To feed someone from your table was not charity, it was duty, a moral rhythm that bound communities together. A rich man's abundance carried the weight of others' hunger. It was understood, almost instinctively, that to waste food was to waste grace. Today, we live surrounded by plenty and haunted by absence. We throw away enough food to feed cities, yet still feel empty. We eat faster, but taste less. Buy more, but value less. The medieval world, with all its strangeness, would not understand such waste. They lived close to their food, grew it, touched it, smelled it as it cooked. To them, a meal was alive. It had a story, a journey, a prayer behind it. To us, it comes wrapped in silence and plastic. We have made food convenient, but also invisible. There was a kind of poetry in how they ate, not in the exotic dishes or grand feasts, but in the rhythm of enough. Enough to survive, enough to share, enough to give thanks. The table was never only for eating, it was a place of memory. Children learned patience as they waited for bread to rise. Lovers shared secrets between courses. Old men told stories of harvests long gone. Even hunger had dignity because it taught gratitude. In the dim light of the great hall, when the last candle burned low and the smell of roast lingered in the air, people didn't just feel full, they felt human. The act of eating was never only about the body, it was about belonging. To share food was to share existence itself. The bread passed between hands carried something more ancient than words, the understanding that life, fragile and fleeting, must be savored while it lasts. And perhaps that is the wisdom we have misplaced. We live in a world of endless choice, yet our hearts are rarely satisfied. We chase new flavors, but forget to bless the old. The medieval peasant who bowed his head over a bowl of thin soup may have known peace more profound than we do at a banquet. His gratitude was quiet, but complete. He ate slowly, knowing that the next meal was never guaranteed, and that made it sacred. So tonight, if you find yourself reaching for food, pause for a moment. Think of the hands that once broke bread by candlelight, the voices that whispered grace in stone halls, the children who laughed at tables made from rough wood. The world has changed, but hunger remains the same. To eat mindfully is to remember where we came from, a time when waste was sin and every morsel carried meaning. Close your eyes now. Hear the faint clatter of wooden bowls, the low hum of evening prayers, the soft crackle of fire. You are not so far from them, those who lived before us, who ate simply, gratefully, and never forgot that food, like life, is a gift.
How did they survive without heating? The question feels almost impossible to imagine
from our world of glowing thermostats and electric warmth. But in the Middle Ages, winter was not an inconvenience, it was an adversary. The cold was a presence that crept into stone walls, whispered through thatched roofs, and lingered in the breath of those who dared to sleep. And yet, somehow, they endured, not through machines, but through closeness. As the sun vanished early and frost sealed the fields, families gathered into one room. The fire was their sun, the hearth their heartbeat. Its crackle was the sound of safety. Around it the day ended, supper eaten, prayers whispered, children lulled to sleep by the glow. When the embers dimmed, everyone, from grandparents to infants, crawled into the same bed or onto straw mattresses laid across the floor. Even animals joined them. Dogs, cats, sometimes chickens or goats slept near the family, sharing warmth in silence. To us, it might seem crude, but to them, it was comfort. The warmth of breath, the steady sound of another heart. Beds themselves were humble miracles. A wooden frame filled with straw, reeds, or dried leaves became a nest against the chill. Sheets were linen if one could afford them, but most slept under wool, coarse, heavy, and wonderfully warm. The lucky few had furs, fox, rabbit, or sheepskin. In great halls, curtains were drawn around beds, not for modesty, but to trap heat. The space beneath the covers became a world of its own, dark, quiet, smelling faintly of smoke and life. At night, the cold bit deepest. The fire would fade and darkness pressed close. So they found clever ways to cheat the frost. Some heated stones in the hearth, wrapping them in cloth before slipping them between the sheets. Others used metal boxes filled with glowing coals, early ancestors of the hot water bottle, carried carefully to avoid burns. These small radiances became symbols of care. A mother warming a stone for her child, a husband slipping a coal box under the blanket before his wife climbed in. These gestures were not just survival, but tenderness. And still, cold was constant. To wake in a medieval house was to see your breath in the morning light, to feel frost on the blanket's edge. Water left overnight froze solid. Yet the people adapted. They dressed for sleep much as they dressed for life, in layers. Wool tunics, linen shifts, stockings and nightcaps pulled over the ears. Even the wealthy wore nightgowns, thick and long, sometimes trimmed with fur. The poorest slept in their day clothes, worn, patched, but familiar, the fabric holding the memory of their own body heat. It was said that sharing warmth built bonds deeper than words. Children huddled close to parents. Lovers whispered stories into each other's hair. And when the wind howled outside, the house hummed softly inside, a cocoon of human breath defying the endless winter. There was hardship, yes, but there was also a strange beauty, a kind of togetherness modern life rarely knows. In the medieval night, warmth was not measured by degrees, but by presence. It lived in the nearness of others, in the courage to sleep and wake up again, in the humble gratitude of surviving one more dawn. When the rooster crowed and frost glistened on the window, they rose slowly, breathed deeply, and thanked the fire, not because it was enough, but because it was there.
The night was a living thing in the Middle Ages. It crept through the cracks in the walls, sighed through broken shutters, and laid its cold hand on every sleeping soul. Fire was the only defense, a fragile son that had to be coaxed, fed, and watched like a child. And when it finally dimmed into embers, the rest of the night belonged to wool, to faith, and to the will to endure. They wrapped themselves not in luxury, but in wisdom. Wool was their armor, thick, coarse, sometimes scratchy, but strong enough to trap the heat of breath and body. A wool blanket was a treasure, often passed from mother to daughter, its edges mended so many times that it carried the memory of generations. Beneath it, straw mattresses rustled softly. When you moved, the sound was like wind in dry grass. Above you, the canopy, a curtain drawn around the bed, trapped what little warmth escaped. Within those heavy folds, a tiny climate existed, a pocket of survival carved from the greater cold. And so, sleep became something sacred. It was not taken for granted, but earned like a prayer answered. To climb into bed was to step into a fortress of fabric. The act was deliberate. Shake out the straw, check the fire, tuck the blanket close. The poor slept fully clothed. The rich added layers, linen shifts, woolen gowns, even fur-lined night robes. The head was never left bare. Nightcaps tied beneath the chin kept warmth from fleeing through the scalp. A good night's rest depended on what you wore as much as what you believed. Some found comfort in ritual, a small prayer before bed. Protect us, Lord, from frost and night. Others crossed themselves before blowing out the last candle, believing darkness carried spirits best left undisturbed. In many villages, people left a burning ember in the hearth overnight, both to relight the morning fire and to ward off evil. The glow of coals beneath ash was like a heartbeat beneath the ribs of the house. But when the fire truly died, there were still other tricks. Stones heated in the fireplace, wrapped in cloth, were slipped between sheets. Those who could afford it used small metal pans, filled with hot coals, slid across the bed to chase the chill before lying down. They were called bed warmers, and though simple, they carried intimacy. You could always tell who cared for whom by the warmth of their bed. A servant warming their master's sheets, a wife preparing her husband's side, or a mother tucking a glowing stone at her child's feet. These were acts of quiet devotion, growing brighter than any flame. The scent of the night was unique: smoke, wool, and human closeness. In the silence, you could hear life itself, the soft creak of wood, the sigh of someone turning over, the muffled bleat of a goat in the corner.
Sometimes the wind outside made the house shudder, and the people within pulled the blankets tighter, whispering that the world was still good, that warmth still existed. The fire's memory lived in them, in their blood, their touch, their shared breath. And though they slept in discomfort, they did not despair. They believed in the endurance of light, in the promise of morning. Each night survived was a triumph, each dawn a small miracle. The fire that flickered low in the hearth was more than heat. It was faith made visible. It reminded them that even in the longest night, something still glowed. When the last ember died, morning began. The medieval family would rise shivering, their breath white in the air, their fingers stiff and pink from cold. Someone, usually the mother or eldest son, would kneel by the hearth, stir the ashes, and search for one surviving spark. If it was gone, they sighed, struck flint against steel, and coaxed new fire from stone. That first flame of the day was a small miracle, a promise that life continued. The house would slowly awaken around it, children dressing by the smoke, the smell of oats and ash mingling, the world thawing one breath at a time. They understood something we have forgotten, that warmth was not a given, but a blessing. It came from effort, from tending, from patience, from care. To keep a fire alive meant staying awake through part of the night, rising to feed it when the wind howled. It meant sharing what little you had, a blanket, a bed, a body's heat. In that struggle, something human burned brighter than the flame itself. They lived close to hardship, but also close to gratitude. Today, we live in a world where warmth comes at the press of a button. We seal ourselves in quiet rooms where temperature never changes, where night is no darker than day. Yet somehow, the more comfortable we become, the colder life feels. We chase warmth endlessly in our homes, our hearts, our screens, but seldom remember what it costs. The medieval night was harsh, but it gave meaning to morning. Our comfort, for all its ease, has made us forget the value of contrast, the miracle of returning light after darkness. When we think of energy today, we think of scarcity and crisis, bills rising, fuel running out, fear of the cold returning. But perhaps the lesson isn't in fear, but in memory. The people of the past didn't defeat the cold by abundance. They survived it through connection. They gathered closer. They learned to share warmth, not waste it. To them, heat was sacred because it was finite. They didn't take it for granted. They guarded it with their lives. And maybe that's what we need to remember, that comfort means nothing without care. Imagine for a moment your power gone, your home dark, the hum of machines replaced by silence. What would keep you warm? Not your walls, not your screens. It would be the same thing that saved them centuries ago. Closeness, the warmth of a friend's voice, a shared blanket, the steady rhythm of breathing in unison. In that silence, you might rediscover the same truth they knew by firelight, that survival is never solitary. For medieval families, the night was not an enemy, but a teacher. It taught endurance, humility, and the beauty of simplicity. It reminded them that comfort earned is sweeter than comfort bought. And every time they relit the morning fire, they relit something within themselves: hope, faith, the stubborn joy of being alive. So when winter comes and the world outside grows cold again, remember them, those who slept under wool and stars, who kept faith with fire and with one another. Their nights were longer, their rooms smaller, their world harsher, but their hearts were not colder. They knew that warmth was more than heat. It was love, labor, and the light that flickers inside us all. Tonight, as you settle beneath your own blankets, take a slow breath. Listen to the quiet hum of your world, the radiators, the city beyond your window, the soft whir of comfort. Then close your eyes and imagine a single flame in a stone hearth, glowing against the dark. Feel its light touch your face. Somewhere deep inside, that ancient fire still burns. Patient, human, eternal.
Medieval romance was nothing like today. There were no candlelit restaurants, no letters sealed with perfume, no quiet walks beneath the stars. At least, not for most. Love in the Middle Ages was a rare luxury, often tangled in duty, land, and bloodlines. Yet within that web of expectation, hearts still found strange and tender ways to connect, ways that might seem unthinkable to us now, but were once considered the height of decency. One such custom was bundling. Imagine this: a cold winter's night in a village where walls are thin and privacy a myth. Two young people, betrothed but not yet wed, are permitted to spend the night together. They lie side by side in bed, talking softly, faces lit by a single flickering candle. But there's a catch. They're fully clothed, wrapped tightly in layers of linen and wool. Sometimes a wooden board or thick sheet divides them. It was a test of patience, of restraint, of sincerity. The belief was simple. If two could share warmth without giving in to passion, perhaps their love was genuine. Parents approved of bundling because it allowed intimacy without sin. In some regions, even inns offered bundling beds for courting couples. They would talk for hours about fields, faith, and futures, while the world outside froze. It was awkward, yes, but also strangely innocent. In an age ruled by rules, this was one of the few spaces where two hearts could meet without consequence. There are letters from the 15th century describing couples who bundled and spoke through the night but did not sin. Perhaps they didn't need to. In the hush of that closeness, with the sound of each other's breathing, they felt something sacred, a connection stronger than touch. But love was rarely theirs to decide. Most marriages were arranged long before the couple even met. For nobles, unions were contracts, treaties written in flesh. A daughter might be promised to a man she'd never seen, to bind two families or end a feud. For peasants, the stakes were humbler, but no less binding. Marrying for love was risky. Survival came first. A husband meant labor shared, fields tilled, bread earned. A wife meant heirs, hands, and the quiet rhythm of continuity. Romance, if it came at all, came after duty.
Yet even within these boundaries, love found its way. There are old songs, sung by farmers and washerwomen, of girls who married strangers but grew to love them, of men who came home from war and saw beauty in the same tired hands that kneaded their bread. Love, when it bloomed, was slow, practical, and deep, not a spark, but an ember. And it was often kindled by simple things, the sharing of a blanket, the laughter over spilled ale, the gentle touch after a day's labor. Still, not all unions were tender. Power, wealth, and status decided much. A noblewoman might be given away at 12, her husband twice her age. The church sanctioned it, calling it holy. But behind the rituals and blessings, many hearts broke quietly. For women especially, marriage was less a choice than a calling, one she could not refuse. And so, under veils and vows, many learned to hide their longing. Their letters, when they survived, tell of private rebellions, glances stolen, songs whispered, dreams kept secret like forbidden fruit. In such a world, love had to be clever. It spoke in code, in ribbons tied to sleeves, in flowers pressed between psalms, in the way someone lingered a moment too long by the well. To say, "I love you," could be dangerous, but to show it with silence was safe. Theirs was a love of patience and of imagination. As the candle burned low, bundled couples drifted to sleep, their faces turned towards one another, separated by cloth, but not by feeling. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, hearts whispered. And though their world was strict, their longing was timeless, as warm as the breath they shared beneath the weight of winter linen. Love in the Middle Ages was rarely private. Even the most intimate moments were watched, whispered about, or bound by rules as rigid as church stone. For all its poetry of knights and ladies, real romance often began and ended under the gaze of others. The wedding night, for example, was not the tender secret we imagine today. In noble houses, it was a public affair, part ritual, part performance, part proof. After the feast and blessing, the couple was led to their chamber by a procession of witnesses, priests, relatives, sometimes even the king's men. The bride, young and pale beneath her veil, would be seated upon the bed while prayers were recited. Then, before the room was cleared, some noble or elder would pour wine, say a blessing, and draw the curtains only halfway. The implication was clear. This union was not just about love, but about lineage. It was the duty of flesh to secure bloodlines, land, and power. For the common folk, the ritual was simpler, but the expectation the same. Marriage had to be proven. In some villages, neighbors would wait outside, teasing and cheering when morning came. It was crude, but also communal, a strange mixture of celebration and surveillance. Love was not owned by two people. It was a contract witnessed by all. And yet, for all this public scrutiny, medieval people were endlessly inventive in the private arts of desire. Love potions were whispered about, brewed in kitchens or sold by cunning women who claimed to know nature's secrets. Some mixed herbs like yarrow and sage, believed to open the heart. Others used stranger ingredients, ground pearls, drops of blood, or the dust from a lover's footprint. A woman might slip such a potion into her husband's drink to keep his affection, or a man might wear a charm made from the hair of the one he desired. It wasn't magic so much as hope, a desperate attempt to bend fate, to make love stay. The church condemned these practices, calling them sinful, yet they persisted for centuries. Because beneath all the sermons and sacraments, people longed for what sermons could not give: passion, comfort, belonging. There was even an old belief that love itself could be a kind of illness, a fever of the soul. Physicians of the time described amor herois, lovesickness, with symptoms like sleeplessness, loss of appetite, and melancholy. The cure? Prayer, distance, or sometimes marriage. But love also carried risk, especially for women. To love too openly was to invite ruin. A glance, a touch, or a rumor could destroy a life. Still, many dared. There are letters from abbeys where nuns wrote of forbidden affection, love born not of sin, but of yearning. One wrote, "My heart burns with the light of God, but also with another flame I cannot name." In a world that watched everything, these private confessions were acts of courage. Fertility, too, was woven into this tapestry of duty and desire. Without children, marriages lost purpose. Women were measured by their ability to bear life, and men by their strength to create it. Superstitions filled the spaces where science had not yet reached. To conceive, couples might drink wine infused with hawthorn or eat eggs laid on the full moon. Some kissed under yew trees for luck. Others prayed to saints of childbirth, Saint Margaret, Saint Anne, whispering for mercy in the dark. For many, love was less about choice than destiny, written in the stars or sealed by divine will. Yet even within these confines, tenderness survived. A husband might lay a heated stone beneath his wife's feet on cold nights. A wife might save the first flower of spring to place beneath her husband's pillow. In the cracks of a rigid world, affection still bloomed quietly, like ivy growing between stones. And though their rules may seem cruel or absurd, there was something pure in their longing. They lived in a world where every kiss could be a scandal, every touch a prayer, and every union both a duty and a miracle. Love was not easy, but it was never ordinary.
In the quiet centuries that followed, love began to change. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a thaw after a long winter. What had once been a matter of duty began to stir with something gentler, freer, more human. People started to ask questions that had never been asked aloud before. What if love could be chosen? What if affection were not arranged but earned? What if two souls, not two families, could decide their own fate? These were dangerous thoughts in a world still ruled by bloodlines and crowns, but they were also the seeds of the world we live in now. The shift began not in castles, but in letters. As literacy spread, people found their voices and used them. Love poetry blossomed in secret corners of Europe, written by troubadours who sang not of politics, but of longing.
In their verses, love became something holy, not because the church said so, but because it moved the soul. A knight could serve a lady out of devotion rather than contract. A woman could admire a man for kindness rather than title. Slowly, choice began to slip through the cracks of tradition like sunlight through an old window. And yet, freedom did not come easily. For centuries, marriage remained a duty, a trade, a tool, a tether. The church still required witnesses, dowries, and vows before God. But behind the rituals, hearts began to rebel. Lovers met in secret, wrote forbidden words, exchanged tokens under moonlight. Better to love and suffer, one medieval poet wrote, than to marry and forget. Even within constraint, people were learning to choose, even if only in silence. The notion of consent, as we understand it today, was born from these quiet acts of defiance. It wasn't codified by kings or carved in law first. It was whispered between lovers who refused to let their feelings be owned. It grew from empathy, from the understanding that love without choice is not love at all. By the Renaissance, those whispers had become words. Philosophers began to speak of mutual affection, of marriage as companionship rather than transaction. It was radical then and still profound now. Still, even today, the echoes of those old customs remain. We may not have bundling beds or witnessed weddings, but we still feel the weight of expectation, from family, from society, from time itself. The struggle to choose love freely, to honor both desire and dignity, continues. And yet, compared to the candlelit chambers of the past, our world is radiant with possibility. We can love across distance, across difference, across choice itself. Perhaps what truly connects us to the people of the Middle Ages is not the rules they followed, but the courage they found to feel beyond them. Beneath layers of fabric, under the eyes of witnesses, and within the confines of duty, they still searched for something eternal, the warmth of being seen, chosen, and cherished. We are not so different. When we speak of consent today, it sounds like a modern invention, but in truth, it is ancient. It is the sigh of the woman who dared say no, the pause of the man who waited to be invited closer, the trembling silence between two souls deciding together that this, whatever this is, should be real. It is not just permission, it is recognition, a kind of sacred equality that turns love into a dialogue, not a decree. And so, the story of medieval love ends not with grand gestures, but with quiet victories. Two hearts that learned to meet as equals, not prisoners. From duty to desire, from silence to speech, from obedience to understanding. Love, through centuries of cold walls and cruel customs, never stopped evolving. It only waited for us to catch up. Tonight, if you hold someone close, think of those who once lay beneath wool blankets, divided by fabric, but joined by hope. The language may have changed, but the longing has not. Every era has its way of saying, "I choose you." Ours is simply louder, but not more sincere.
What did people do for fun without phones, screens, or endless streams of noise? In the Middle Ages, entertainment was not found in glowing pixels, but in the pulse of the crowd, the crackle of fire, and the weight of silence between laughter and fear. Life was hard, uncertain, often cruel, and so was their amusement. To modernize, it might seem horrifying, but to them, it was life's mirror, raw, unfiltered,
and brutally human. Public executions, for instance, were among the most anticipated events in town. When the church bells tolled, people gathered not out of pity, but excitement. Vendors sold meat pies and warm ale as if it were a festival. Children sat on their parents' shoulders to see better. The scaffold stood like a theater stage, and the condemned man, trembling or defiant, became the unwilling actor. It sounds grotesque now, but in those days, death was a familiar guest. To witness it was not morbid curiosity, it was a lesson, a reminder that sin had consequences, and justice, however cruel, was visible. For some, it even felt moral, as if watching punishment made them safe from guilt. There were times when these grim spectacles blurred into celebration. Executions of traitors, thieves, or heretics became communal catharsis, a way to release collective fear. Some cried, some cheered, others prayed. And when it was over, the crowd dispersed to taverns, telling the story again and again, as if to taste control over the chaos of life. It was their version of cinema, real, immediate, and unforgettable. Animal baiting was another strange joy of the time. In bustling market squares, chained bears were made to dance, while jesters provoked them with whips. Dogs fought bulls. Roosters wore tiny blades on their legs and were set against each other, while men wagered coins. These were cruel amusements, but cruelty and laughter often lived side by side. The boundary between survival and sport was thin. A man who had starved through winter might find release in a contest of strength, even if it was savage. It was the rhythm of a world still ruled by hunger and hierarchy. To them, laughter wasn't always gentle. It was sometimes dark, the laughter of people who had seen too much death to fear it anymore. They joked about fate, mocked their own suffering, and turned misery into jest. The medieval sense of humor was not innocent, it was survival. There were ballads about drunk priests, songs about foolish kings, and puppet shows that dared to mock the church when no one else could. Humor was rebellion, wrapped in laughter. In the villages, where coin was scarce and boredom heavy, the evening fire became the stage. People told stories, myths, riddles, parables. A peasant might tell of the saint who argued with the devil and won, or of the miller's wife who fooled death himself. They laughed not because the stories were happy, but because they understood them, because they too bargained with life every day. And yet, there was warmth in it all. Beneath the rough edges, these gatherings built connection. The laughter echoing through a smoky tavern or over a bonfire in the square was not about cruelty alone. It was about survival, shared humanity, the need to feel alive even when life was fragile. In a world of darkness, laughter, even grim laughter, was light. Tonight, as we scroll, watch, and listen in endless loops of comfort, it's hard to imagine finding joy in a hanging or a bear dance. But the heart of it, The need to gather, to feel together, to witness something real remains the same. Our screens are new. Our hunger for story is not.
When the gallows were empty and the markets quieted, joy found another stage. One lit not by horror, but by firelight and laughter. The medieval feast was more than a meal. It was theater, spectacle, and survival wrapped into one. Life was uncertain, death ever near, and so, when fortune allowed, people celebrated with all the hunger of those who knew how fragile joy could be. Inside the great halls of castles, long wooden tables stretched from wall to wall, covered with roasted meats, trenchers of bread soaked in gravy, and flagons of ale that never seemed to empty. But beyond the food, it was the performance that gave these nights their soul. Minstrels strummed lutes and sang songs of heroes and fools. Acrobats tumbled through the air with reckless grace. Dancers spun in circles, skirts flaring like bursts of fire. The laughter that rose from those halls was loud, raw, and contagious, a defiance against the cold world outside. At the heart of it all stood the fool, the jester, the licensed truth-teller. With a painted face, jingling bells, and tongue sharp as a blade, he dared to say what no one else could. He mocked kings, priests, and nobles alike, making them laugh at their own vanity. The fool was not foolish at all. He was wise in disguise. His humor carried truths too dangerous to speak plainly. A jest, people said, is a truth that smiles. In a time when words could be punished, laughter was freedom. The fool's role extended beyond the castle walls. In villages, festivals of misrule turned order upside down. The poorest man might be crowned king of fools for a day, while nobles served him wine. It was chaos, but a necessary one, a brief rebellion against the rigid structure of medieval life. The people danced, sang bawdy songs, and laughed until tears mixed with ale, as if the world itself exhaled, letting out a year's worth of fear and fatigue in one night of madness. Music filled every space it could reach. Even in humble taverns, a fiddler could turn silence into joy. Songs told stories of lost lovers, wandering knights, or even mischievous saints who drank too much wine. Some were slow and haunting, others wild and raucous, but all were shared. The act of singing together, shoulder to shoulder, hearts beating to the same rhythm, reminded people that life, though harsh, could still be beautiful. Storytelling, too, was a form of celebration. Around the hearth, as shadows danced on walls, voices wove worlds. A bard might tale of King Arthur's courage, or of the clever peasant who tricked a greedy lord. These stories were not just tales, they were lessons, memories, and mirrors of their own struggles. The storyteller was both entertainer and healer, soothing the weariness of the soul with imagination.
And there was something tender, almost holy, about that shared laughter. It crossed boundaries, rich and poor, old and young, sinner and saint, all united by the same fragile joy. For one night, the world forgot its hierarchy. No one cared about titles or taxes. All that mattered was the warmth of the fire and the music in the air. To modern ears, their jokes might sound crude, their feasts excessive, their humor strange. But beneath it all was the same heartbeat we still carry, the need to laugh when life is too heavy to bear. Their laughter, loud and imperfect, was not an escape from suffering. It was a declaration of life itself. When you hear laughter today, in a movie, a song, or a crowded street, you're hearing an echo of that same ancient sound, the sound of survival disguised as joy. The sound of fools who understood better than anyone that sometimes, to endure the world, you must learn to laugh with it.
Laughter in every age is born from the same fire, a fragile spark against the cold. The medieval world knew this well. When every day could bring famine, plague, or war, people learned to laugh not because life was kind, but because it wasn't. Humor was not decoration, it was defense, a shield forged from irony and absurdity, a quiet whisper that said, "We're still here." In taverns and village squares, laughter often came from pain. The jokes were crude, yes, but honest. Jokes about death, about hunger, about God's strange sense of humor. A man might joke that his cow had more faith than the local priest, or that the plague had better aim than the king's soldiers. These weren't just attempts at amusement, they were acts of survival. To laugh at suffering was to take its power away, to look into the abyss and grin. It was, in its own way, courage. The medieval mind found dark humor not immoral, but necessary. When the church bells tolled for yet another funeral, people still told stories, grim, funny, human. A peasant might say, "The priest buried 3 men today and charged each one twice," and the crowd would roar. Because in that laughter there was truth. The world was unfair, but laughter was still free. The poorest could mock the richest, the weak could outwit the powerful, if only for a heartbeat. That moment of shared laughter was rebellion wrapped in joy. And perhaps that's why we still laugh at the things that hurt us most. Dark humor didn't die with the Middle Ages, it evolved. It lives in the satire that mocks corruption, in the memes that turn chaos into comedy, in the quiet laughter we share after saying, "If I don't laugh, I'll cry." It's a lineage that stretches from jesters to comedians, from bonfires to bright screens. The form has changed, but the need, that ancient aching need, remains. Back then, a fool could save a soul with a joke. Today, a comic might do the same. When we laugh at the absurdity of our world, at politics, pain, even death, we are carrying forward an old ritual. We remind ourselves that no matter how cruel fate can be, we still get to write the punchline. And isn't that the essence of humanity?
The ability to take sorrow, twist it, and find in it something strangely beautiful? The medieval fool understood this better than anyone. When he stumbled, when he fell, when the crowd jeered, he exaggerated the pain, turned it into art. Every fall was rehearsed, every bruise a story. He laughed first so others could laugh safely after. That's the sacred power of humor. It transforms wounds into warmth. Even in the darkest moments, plagues, wars, hunger, laughter threaded through history like a quiet melody. It was a lullaby for fear, the sound of resilience. And it still is. Every time we laugh at tragedy, not to mock it, but to survive it, we echo the laughter of those long gone. Peasants huddled by fires, fools performing in candlelight, children chasing shadows in the mud. In the end, dark humor is not about cruelty. It's about light, the small, flickering kind that refuses to go out. It teaches us that laughter and sorrow are not opposites, but partners. That joy doesn't erase pain, it redeems it. And maybe that's why, even now, in our glowing modern world, we still crave the strange comfort of irony. It's not that we've become cynical, it's that deep down we remember. So tonight, as you listen or drift between dreams, think of those who came before us. Their laughter may have echoed through stone halls and muddy fields, but it carried the same heartbeat as ours. It said, yes, the world is cruel, but still we laugh. Because to laugh is to live is to endure, and to endure is the oldest art of all.
They believed walls could trap evil spirits. To live in the Middle Ages was to live between the visible and the unseen, a world where every shadow had meaning. Every sound in the dark could be something more than wind. Faith was not just in God, it was in everything: wood, stone, smoke, and breath. And because the world was so uncertain, people built not only homes, but fortresses for the soul. When a new house was built, it was not complete until it had been protected. Beneath the floorboards, hidden near the hearth or under a doorway, villagers would bury witch bottles. These were small glass or clay flasks filled with curious things: nails, hair, urine, salt, thorns. To modern minds, it sounds grotesque, but to them, each ingredient had a purpose. The bottle was a trap, a spiritual mousetrap for evil. The hair lured the curse, the nails pierced it, the salt sealed it away. If sickness or misfortune struck, they believed the bottle had caught the dark force in its grasp. Some of these bottles have been found centuries later, still sealed, still waiting. Archaeologists who open them often describe a strange feeling, as if disturbing something that was never meant to see light again. Maybe superstition has a way of clinging to air. Maybe faith, once buried, never dies. In the wooden beams above doors, symbols were carved. Crosses or circles are curious runes of protection. These weren't decorations, but wards. A child might run his fingers over them before bed, tracing the lines like a prayer. The markings were silent guardians, meant to confuse spirits or remind angels to watch the house. At Christmas or the feast of a saint, fresh chalk was used to redraw the marks. In some old cottages of England, those symbols still faintly exist, faded by centuries of smoke, but still visible if you look closely under the eaves. They are the fingerprints of fear, but also of faith. Food, too, was sacred. Before breaking bread, people whispered blessings, not as polite custom, but as a shield. Bread was life, and life was fragile. To cut it without blessing was to tempt hunger, or worse, the devil's envy. In parts of rural Europe, it was common to trace a cross on the loaf before slicing, or to give the first piece to the fire as an offering. They believed even fire had a spirit, unpredictable, hungry, but capable of mercy if treated with respect. The medieval world was woven with ritual, both holy and strange. To live then was to be aware that unseen eyes watched, not just from heaven, but from the corners of rooms, from wells, from mirrors. Superstition was not foolishness, it was survival. When reason is scarce and danger constant, belief becomes armor. To us, it might sound quaint. Bottles under floors, symbols in wood, whispered charms over bread. But imagine a world where a fever could steal a life in a night, where crops failed without warning, where a single misstep could mean death. In such a world, control was rare, and belief was power. To carve a symbol or bury a charm was to say, I may not command the world, but I can protect my corner of it. And perhaps, in their quiet way, they were right. Every mark, every hidden ritual was a prayer for peace, and when they laid their heads to rest, they might have slept a little easier, not because the world was safer, but because they had done what they could to make it so.
The line between superstition and faith was never clear in the medieval world. It was more like a soft shadow, shifting with light and fear. For people who woke with uncertainty and slept beside danger, every gesture, every word, every small habit carried meaning. Protection wasn't something you asked for once in prayer. It was something you practiced every single day. Before bread was cut, it was blessed. The loaf was more than food, it was life itself. A farmer would lift it gently, tracing the sign of the cross on its surface with a knife, whispering a few words under his breath. Sometimes the first slice was placed beside the fire or on the windowsill as an offering to spirits that might pass by. Bread shared without blessing, they said, invited bad luck, or worse, made the heart restless. For the poor, it was not ritual for show, but gratitude in disguise. Every crumb mattered. Every meal was sacred. And then there was spitting, an act we now see as crude, but once believed to hold power. When someone praised a baby for being beautiful, an elder might spit softly over the child's shoulder, or even make the sound of spitting in the air. It wasn't an insult, it was protection. The evil eye was a danger everywhere, a curse cast not by witches, but by envy. Compliments, if left unbalanced, could attract misfortune, so they countered it with spit, a simple, ancient gesture to break the gaze. In their minds, moisture purified, sound confused spirits, and the act itself sealed good luck. Even now, in parts of rural Europe and Asia, old women still spit 3 times for safety, not out of ignorance, but memory. Charms were everywhere. People wore rabbit's feet, dried herbs, or coins with holes in them as talismans. The rabbit's foot was said to carry the spirit of fertility, swift, lucky, alive. The 4-leaf clover was rarer still, a whisper from nature herself that fate had looked kindly upon you. It wasn't the object that had power, but the hope woven into it. When you have little control, belief becomes a form of agency. Holding a charm was a way to say, "I will not surrender to chance." Even words had weight. A sneeze was answered with a blessing, not out of politeness, but fear. A sneeze meant the soul might escape for an instant, leaving the body open to harm. Saying, "God bless you," was a way to anchor it back in place. And when storms rolled across the sky, mothers would cross their children's foreheads with ash, or whisper a prayer to Saint Barbara, protector against lightning. Everything from bread to thunder was part of a larger conversation with the unseen. To us, these gestures seem small, almost quaint, but for them they were daily negotiations with fate. Each one was a language, wordless, instinctive, that reminded people they were not powerless. When a man blessed his bread, he claimed peace for his home. When a mother spat to protect her child, she built a shield of love. When someone carried a charm, they carried courage. And perhaps in their simple way, these superstitions made life gentler. They filled the gaps that reason could not. They turned fear into ritual, and ritual into comfort. A whispered prayer over bread, a spit over the shoulder, a rabbit's foot tucked in a pocket. All were tiny acts of hope stitched into the rough fabric of daily life. Even now, echoes of those rituals remain. We knock on wood, cross our fingers, avoid walking under ladders. We may call it habit, but the truth is simpler. Deep down, we still long to feel protected, to believe that somehow, through gesture or thought, we can bend the world toward kindness. The medieval heart never truly left us. It beats quietly in every blessing we mutter, every charm we keep, every small superstition we pretend not to believe.
Fear has always walked beside humanity, sometimes as an enemy, sometimes as a friend. In the medieval world, fear was constant and visible. Sickness, storms, hunger, war. To live was to balance between faith and terror. And superstition was the rope that held people steady. It wasn't ignorance, it was an instinct, an attempt to find meaning in the chaos. And though centuries have passed, that instinct never left us. It only changed its clothing. Today, we tell ourselves we're rational. We laugh at the idea of witch bottles or rabbit's feet, but still we cross our fingers, knock on wood, and say good luck before important moments. We check horoscopes, carry crystals, light candles when we feel lost. We whisper to the universe, hoping it whispers back.
The medieval villager buried a bottle under his floorboards. We place a motivational quote on our phone screen. Both acts come from the same fragile hope that somehow intention can soften uncertainty. Superstition, at its heart, is not about control, but comfort. It gives shape to the invisible. The medieval farmer didn't bless his bread because he thought it would stop famine. He did it because it reminded him that some things, warmth, family, daily bread, were still in his hands. The gesture made meaning out of survival. And we do the same, though we rarely admit it. When we repeat small rituals, a morning coffee in silence, a lucky shirt on exam day, a whispered wish before sleep, we are weaving order into the unknown. In every age, belief has been a language for fear. It says, "I can't stop the storm, but I can light a candle." It says, "I can't see the future, but I can make peace with it." The medieval world wrapped that truth in prayer and ritual. We wrap it in psychology and mindfulness, but the heartbeat is the same. We crave to feel that we matter, that our choices, our words, our small acts of faith can ripple against fate itself. Even science, in its precision, has not silenced that need. We may no longer carve symbols on doors, but we decorate our spaces with meaning. We hang family photos for protection. We wear jewelry not just for beauty, but for memory. We still whisper to the unknown, though now we call it manifesting. The names change: superstition, spirituality, intuition, but the essence remains the same: the human desire to make the unseen a little kinder. And perhaps that is what superstition truly was and still is. Not a lie we tell ourselves, but a story we use to survive. In the medieval night, when wind howled and wolves cried beyond the fields, a mother would whisper a blessing over her child, believing angels would listen. She might never know if it worked, but the child slept easier, and so did she. In that sense, faith, even if misplaced, becomes its own kind of protection. We often think progress means leaving old beliefs behind, but maybe wisdom lies in remembering why we needed them. Fear was never just something to conquer. It was something to live with. The medieval people understood that in ways we've forgotten. They danced with their fears, named them, blessed them, laughed at them. They didn't deny the dark. They learned to live beside it. So when you light a candle for luck, or whisper a prayer before a flight, or hesitate before deleting a message just in case, know that you are continuing an ancient ritual. You are speaking the same silent language as the hands that once drew crosses on bread or buried bottles beneath their floors. You are reminding yourself that even in a world of logic and data, the heart still seeks magic, not to change the world, but to make peace with it. And maybe that is what it means to be human, to carry both faith and fear, side by side, to bless what you can't control, to find comfort even when reason fails. The medieval world may have passed, but its echo remains, soft, persistent, and deeply human in the quiet rituals we perform to feel safe in the dark.
The rich had stranger habits than the poor. In the quiet hours of the medieval night, the world was divided not only by power or gold, but by how one slept, ate, and even breathed. The nobleman's candle burned over velvet sheets, while the peasant's breath mingled with that of animals in a cold stable. Yet both, in their own ways, were just trying to survive the same darkness. Inside royal castles, life shimmered with ritual, but not always with comfort. Every act, even the most private, was ceremonial. Nowhere was that more bizarre than in the role of the groom of the stool, the king's personal attendant for his most intimate needs. To modern ears, the title sounds absurd, even humiliating. But in the Middle Ages, it was an honor beyond measure. This man alone helped the king during his moments of privacy, managed his hygiene, kept records of his digestion, and sometimes his secrets. Because in that vulnerability, trust was born. Many grooms became powerful advisors, whispering counsel as they handed the king a towel. It was not dirt that made them important, but proximity, the closeness to power, both physical and political. Meanwhile, far below the marble towers, peasants curled on straw mattresses beside cows and pigs. To us, it sounds desperate. To them, it was warmth. Animals gave more than milk and meat. They shared their heat. On freezing nights, a family might huddle together in one corner of the hut, wrapped in rags, listening to the rhythmic breathing of livestock. The air smelled of hay, smoke, and life. Humble, heavy, human. There was no velvet, no servants, but also no pretense. In that simplicity, there was a kind of honesty the nobility rarely knew. For kings, food was theater. Before a royal meal began, tasters would sample every dish, not for quality, but for poison. The fear of betrayal was constant. To dine was to risk death. A taster's job was both privilege and peril. One wrong bite could end a life. The king, meanwhile, would sit surrounded by music, servants, and ceremony, yet never truly at ease. For the higher one climbed, the more invisible daggers there were. Even pleasure was shadowed by suspicion. The rituals of dining were labyrinthine. The correct order of serving, the washing of hands in perfumed water, the precise way to bow before a platter of roasted swan. Everything had meaning. Everything was watched. The nobility turned eating into art, and art into armor. Manners were not about politeness, they were about control. To handle a knife gracefully was to prove one's breeding. To spill wine was to risk humiliation. In contrast, the peasant meal was plain: bread, ale, maybe a thin stew. Yet there was laughter, conversation, and the unspoken comfort of togetherness. They ate to fill their bellies. The rich ate to fill their image. Still,
Both worlds shared one truth: fear. The poor feared hunger. The rich feared death. The peasant prayed for rain. The king prayed for loyalty. And both whispered to the same God, hoping he listened. Beneath the surface, the class divide was not just about wealth. It was about the meaning of need. The noble needed admiration to exist. The peasant needed another day. Yet in the end, both hearts beat under the same moonlight, one in silk, one in straw, both dreaming of safety.
In the medieval world, hunger and excess lived side by side. Inside the castles, tables groaned under the weight of golden platters, roasted meats, and jeweled goblets. In the villages, bowls scraped the bottom of the pot. Yet somehow, both rich and poor found meaning in what they ate and in what they shared. For the nobles, food was a declaration. Every bite, every gesture, every course served a message: we are not like you. They didn't just eat, they performed. The more complicated the ritual, the more distant they became from those who worked the soil that fed them. The royal dining hall was a world of sound and spectacle. The echo of minstrels' lutes, the rustle of silk, and the glint of polished armor catching torchlight. Meals could last for hours. Before a king even touched his food, servants lined in perfect formation, each holding a role. One poured the wine, another held the towel, another fanned the air. The ceremony was part devotion, part theater. But beneath the music and the scent of roasted pheasant was the quiet hum of fear, that each sip might be poisoned, that each servant might be a spy. In that golden light, trust was the rarest luxury of all. Meanwhile, the peasants gathered around a single wooden table, often shared by an entire household: parents, children, maybe a neighbor who had lost his crop. The meal was simple: a loaf of rye bread, a bowl of pottage, a mug of ale. No silverware, no servants, no songs. Just the rhythm of hands breaking bread, laughter spilling into the smoke-thick air. They didn't have much, but what they had, they shared. A hungry neighbor was everyone's problem, because hunger could knock on any door next. In that rough togetherness, there was warmth that the richest chamber could never buy. The noble's etiquette was meant to separate. Forks were for those who had time to think about manners. The poor ate with their hands, not from lack of refinement, but because it was practical. Bread served as both plate and utensil, the trencher. After soaking in gravy and fat, it was given to servants or the poor waiting outside the castle gates. To the hungry, even the leftovers of luxury tasted like mercy. It's easy to imagine resentment between classes, but the truth was softer. Many peasants believed their place in life was divine, a design, not a punishment. The church taught that everyone had a station, and to fulfill it faithfully was a path to heaven. Nobles ruled, peasants toiled, priests prayed, the great chain of being. And so, the farmer bowed his head not just to lords, but to fate. He didn't envy the golden plates, he thanked God for bread. Still, cracks appeared. As towns grew, merchants rose, and some peasants found wealth through trade. A new middle class began to form.
people who could dine like nobles but still remember hunger. Their houses smelled not of incense and wine, but of ambition. And quietly, the old balance trembled. The feast and the famine were no longer so far apart. At night, the castle and the cottage looked up at the same moon. One glowed over tiled roofs and guards with torches. The other shimmered faintly on thatched straw. Yet both were homes filled with the same prayers. Keep my family safe. Keep the cold away. Keep the wolves, both real and human, at bay. The divide between rich and poor was vast, but their dreams were not. And perhaps that was the truest equality of all, that every heart, no matter how high or low, beat faster in the dark.
Time has softened the walls of castles and swallowed the huts of peasants, but the echo of inequality still drifts through our modern nights. The names have changed. Nobles and serfs have become CEOs and workers, landlords and tenants. Yet the rhythm of hierarchy remains. In the Middle Ages, a man's fate was decided by birth. Today, it's shaped by opportunity, or the lack of it. But when you look closely, the old patterns still whisper beneath the noise of progress. The groom of the stool no longer wipes for kings, but his spirit lives in those who orbit power, unseen yet essential. Assistants, aides, advisors who carry secrets and burdens that aren't theirs. Royal testers are gone, yet food tasters exist in new forms, those who risk health, time, or dignity to serve comfort to others. And peasants, they haven't vanished, they just hold smartphones now, their hands calloused not from plows, but from endless hours of labor, scrolling through glimpses of lives they'll never live. The throne has become digital, but the hunger remains the same. In medieval villages, people survived by sharing. If one family's crop failed, the others gave what they could: a handful of barley, a piece of bread, a night's shelter. It wasn't charity, it was survival. Today, we call it community, or empathy, or sometimes privilege. But the principle hasn't changed. No one stands alone for long without the kindness of others. The poor of the past knew that dependence was not shameful, it was human. They lived closer to the earth and to each other. They knew warmth could come from shared breath, not just from gold. The nobles, for all their luxury, were often prisoners of their own image. Every gesture was judged, every word recorded. They couldn't laugh too loud, eat too much, or weep in public. Even pleasure had rules. Power, it turns out, demands its own kind of servitude. And that truth hasn't aged a day. The rich still build walls. The powerful still dine under chandeliers. But loneliness has only grown taller. For what use is gold if one cannot rest? What worth is status if it cannot buy peace? Modern life has given us light, heat, and medicine, but also exhaustion, anxiety, and the quiet ache of comparison. We no longer kneel before kings, yet we bow to algorithms. We don't serve feasts for nobles, but we serve data to systems that feed on our attention.
Our castles are offices, our stables apartments. We sleep in soft beds but wake up weary. Perhaps the peasants in their straw and smoke knew something we've forgotten, that comfort is not the same as peace. Still, progress is not hollow. We've learned compassion from history's cruelty. We speak now of equality, of rights, of dignity. The world is far from fair, but awareness itself is a rebellion, a candle lit in a room once ruled by shadows. The peasant's laughter, the noble's pride, the prayers whispered between hunger and hope, they all live on in us. Every time we share, we echo their humanity. Every time we reach across difference, we soften the ancient line between them and us. Maybe one day the last of those old hierarchies will fade, not because we erase them, but because we finally remember what we've always shared. The simple truth that everyone, from throne to field, dreams the same dream. A warm meal, a safe home, a night without fear. The Middle Ages may be gone, but its lessons still breathe in our modern restlessness. Beneath our screens and skyscrapers, we're still just humans looking for warmth in the dark. So as you close your eyes tonight, imagine both the king and the peasant, one beneath velvet, one beneath straw, exhaling into the same cold air, hearts steady under the same moon. Time divides us, but sleep unites us. And in that gentle stillness, class, power, and pride dissolve, leaving only what we are. Fragile, hopeful, endlessly human.